Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Okay friends, I am so excited to be making this video today. It has been a long time coming. I've been reading as many dark cowboy romances as I could. It's something I just can't wait to gobble up. And I do still have more on my TBR because thankfully not only are cowboy romances going through a bit of a splurge right now, but the dark ones are as well. So I hope to have more of these to share with you in the future. But I realized that I had enough to kind of squeak this out, and then I will also share the ones that I plan to read in the next few months or whenever I get to them. No promises, but there's a lot. But I wanted to share some dark cowboy romances with y'all because I know you love it. See, I'm wearing my cowboy romance shirt here, and I got some turquoise, which is usually shown with them a lot. And we're going to go through these. So there are a few that are more on the suspense side than like a full-on dark romance, but they're a bit darker in the themes of the suspense. So we have some of those as well to be able to get us there. So yeah, I have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4 that are a bit lighter, and then 6 that are truly pretty dark, and then the 4 that I don't know yet because I haven't read them. So let's go ahead and just go through and I'll tell you as we go. So first off, we have to start with the one that this is to my knowledge, was the very first dark cowboy romance that I read. And I didn't even know that's something I was looking for. So as always, I credit Miss Pam Godwin for introducing me to something I didn't know that I loved. And that of course is with Knotted. This is the Fabled special edition, which is gorgeous. And this book is beautiful. It's a second chance romance. It's about Connor and sorry, let's find her name. Connor and Jake. And they're in love when they're young, and something really tragic happens and it kind of pushes them apart. And so now it's many years later and they're getting a second chance to be together. And all of this takes place on, you know, a ranch. So there's that. And then this is 3 brothers. So each of the brothers has a book, and there's lots of BDSM included. There's some good rope play happening. I mean, Pam Godwin knows how to do us right, you know? So there we go. Beautiful. Love this one for sure. Okay, then I might as well share the one that I've been going on about for the past, like, man, it's not even been 2 weeks since I read it, and I already am so happy that so many of you guys are reading it. And I mean, when I looked this up on Goodreads, this does have almost 20,000 ratings already. So it's not like other people hadn't heard of this book, but I myself hadn't heard of it. I shared when I read it. It just came across my Instagram when someone had like a photo of a bunch of dark romances, and I saw some indicators that it was a cowboy romance. I'm like, excuse me, nobody's recommended this to me. And that was, of course, Sovereign by Rhea Morris Edwards. And by the time you're seeing this video, the next book in the series should be out. But she does have this and then a novella about this couple. And then Weston is coming out on the 27th. And there is also another novella that'll be about that couple. So yeah, this is a completely new to me author. It won't be the last time that I read her because she has a Mafia romances in her background. So, you know, I'm going to be checking that out as soon as I can. But yeah, this one is about Sovereign Mountain Ranch. So this is the Sovereign Mountain series. And we have Gerard Sovereign, who is the one who runs that, who owns that. He's in his late 30s. And he has a rival ranch, the Garrison Ranch, that he's trying to take over. And when he goes to do some business with Garrison, he meets his beautiful young wife, and he decides that he wants her, and he wants her to be his submissive, and maybe even be more than that. But first he has to get her husband out of the way. So he's willing to do a whole lot to get her in his bed and at his feet, as it were. And I loved it. This had some of the best BDSMS healing that I've read in ages, and I'm never going to shut up about this book. I already have both covers because two of my lovely subscribers sent me. I have both the original cover and then this one, which is gorgeous, right? We love it. We love it so much. Okay, then there is Slay by Abby Glines, and this one is Cowboy Mafia for reals. This one was a surprise to me so much. I read an arc of both Slay and Slay King, and it's a duet within an overall series. I did not end up continuing the series because they were all going to be duets, and so I'm kind of waiting until it's all done, which I think she's far enough ahead now that I'll read more. But anyway, this one has to do with this woman in the beginning. Her husband gets killed for owing some money to someone, aka the family that she's about to end up with. And so she runs, and I think it's her husband, it's her whoever it is, however they're connected, he gets killed for not paying, and she makes a run for it. And so she gets followed by them, and ends up that one of the members of this family like offers her a place to stay, and she doesn't know that she's, you know, the people that killed him have offered her a place to stay. And once she becomes aware of that, that's going to be a rude awakening for her, shall we say. But it turns out that, you know, she might be better off with this family than she was on her own. And yeah, there's not too much else to say about that one, because this one does also involve BDSM as well. I will say one of the things in this is I feel like we made a really big deal about the hero being into BDSM, and then there wasn't much of it at all, right? Definitely if you like BDSM in your dark romance, Sovereign, that's the whole point of that's the whole point of Sovereign is it's an erotic romance, so it's a big deal. So if you want more story than that, Slay definitely can give that to you for sure. Okay, then we have one that, of course, this is along the lighter side for sure, but I have to bring it up because it is part of a Mafia series, and it's also one of my top books of all time. I have it tattooed on my skin, and that is, of course, Broken Vow by Sophie Lark. Yes, our good old boy Raylan and Riona in here, and he ends up being her bodyguard. She is a daughter of the Mafia, and, you know, there is an attempt on her life that happens, and so one of their family friends, well, the brother-in-law of the brother of her sister-in-law, whatever, mentions Raylan could be good at it because he was actually in the military with him, and they're both out now, and he's like, he would do a good job protecting her. And Riona isn't too excited about this, especially because he's snarky and sassy and flirts with her all the time, and she wants to just be able to put him in a particular box and like keep him in that box, and Raylan definitely doesn't want to be put in that box. So when there's another attempt on her life that involves a fire in her penthouse, Raylan is like, okay, this isn't cool. I'm getting you out of the city because it's harder to protect when there literally people could come down from the roof to there, like all these things. And so he takes her to his family ranch in Tennessee to protect her for the time being. And that is where we get some good times on the ranch and also some more rope play, but just a lot of like Riona getting a break from the life she thought she was always supposed to live and her obligations to her family, and spending some time with Raylan's family is quite the change of pace from what she's used to. And it's amazing. Okay, it stands up, guys. It stands up. Okay, then we have more, like there's a lot of Cowboy Mafia ones involved. There's also Brutal Vows by Darcy McQueen, and this is one I really want to share because this is a smaller author. She actually is a viewer of the channel, and she actually sent me the first 3 books in this series, so I do need to get to those. But this year for the Mafia Romance Readathon, I read Brutal Vows, and this is the first one in her series. Now, I don't know that all the books in the series will have Mafia the same way as like Broken Vow is the only one in the Brutal Birthright that does. Is the only one in the Mafia that will have cowboys. That's what I meant to say. But this one involves a woman who's on the run, and she ends up at this ranch to kind of board her horse because she ran away with just her and her horse. And she knows they're going to catch her eventually. So she was going to be forced into a marriage with someone, and she was willing to do it. Here's the thing. She was willing to do this arranged marriage, but she overheard her parents and her fiance talking about putting down her horse. And she heard that, and she's like, what? You know, it's this huge betrayal because it's like she was willing to do everything they asked her to. She wasn't trying to break away. She wasn't misbehaving. The one pleasure she had in her life was her horse. And they were going to put down her horse while she was on her honeymoon and say that the horse had got sick and died. And she's like, that's one straw too many. And she's out of there. So she's on the run. She ends up at this place to board her horse. And the man who owns this land, he is actually ex-Mafia himself. And he was loyal to a mafia boss, and that mafia boss tried to kill him. And so he started fresh with this farm. And so he can tell that there's something about her, that she's more than just the, you know, he's like, there's a lot in her past. And they basically come up with this agreement that, like, you don't ask me and I won't ask you. And so they agree. And he's like, well, you're welcome to find safety here. And that's kind of where we go from it. So I like this one. It does involve some insta love because this isn't super long, but it worked for me because of the situations they're in. And I also think that they are very quickly able to see what type of person the other one is based on what their priorities are. And I think that is a good indication sometimes where when insta love might happen, I'm not as mad about it, because it's like sometimes when you see what's most important to a person and you're able to see who they are, you do fall pretty fast. So there we go. Okay, so those were the ones that were kind of the darkest, again, of the ones I've read. We have the ones I haven't read that we'll get to. But now we're going to do the few that weren't quite as dark if you don't want to go to that level with them. So there is Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. And this is one that it is going around a bit now. A lot of people are getting a hold of this one, and I'm really glad because this one is, it's a bit more like country than straight up like cowboy, but you can just see from this cover and that it's like there's whiskey and bourbon involved. It's bourbon, not whiskey, sorry. There's bourbon involved, that like the vibes you're going to get. And in this one, as I've talked about this book quite a bit since I read it, and Bourbon and Lies is this woman is actually in witness protection. And so she gets sent to this like small town next to this family that they are bourbon makers, bourbon brewer, whatever it is for them. I don't know. And her like, the place that she's staying, her next door neighbor is this retired police officer and his canine. And I just love that every time I talk about it because his canine is brilliant. Her name is Julep. And she likes this woman right away who moved in next door. And so our hero, who's a bit more reluctant because he has his reasons, he can also tell that she's hiding something, which she is. She's in witness protection. And so you can't just come out and tell him everything that's going on. But as they like get to know each other, you know, she finally feels more and more safe to tell him. And what I really enjoyed about this one, not only is the like Western aspects of it, but that when he finds out her secret, the way that he reacts to it, I loved a lot. I will say that. I really liked how he reacted. So definitely recommend this one. Then we have Resting Warrior Ranch by Josie Jade and Janie Crouch. Now, this one, I would say this fits in the dark side. Again, it's the romantic suspense, more of it. But we do have another woman on the run. That happens so often in Westerns, doesn't it? I love it. I don't care. I love it so much. So many Westerns I read this year have that. But in this case, this is a series that I binged all of the audiobooks. I think it was only last year. It feels like it was longer ago, but I think it was only last year that I did. And this Resting Warrior Ranch is this ranch that was started as a healing place for veterans and people with PTSD. And so there are, I think, 7 or 8 of these ex-Navy SEALs. They were all in a unit together and they started Resting Warrior Ranch and they run it together. It's very secure because they're paranoid that way, and they have PT services and a psychiatrist they pair with to help people with that. And so we see different people coming and going. But the very first book in here, Montana Sanctuary, involves this woman on the run. She's been running from her psychotic ex-boyfriend who wants to possess her, and he's a billionaire, and so he keeps finding her, and then she'll have to move again, right? And so she ends up in this small town, and she's looking for a job, and she sees a job listing at Resting Warrior Ranch. Well, it turns out this is a very old posting. It never was taken down off of a billboard there. But the hero who's kind of in charge of the like admin stuff, which I don't remember their names. I do, pardon me. It's been quite a while. But he's like, well, I will offer you a place to stay here because we don't need all the cabins right now. No, we're not maxed out. And he's like, I'll help you find a job in town. And she's like, why would you do that? And so he kind of explains, like, this is what we do here. So you're safe here. No one's going to judge you. You don't have to tell anyone your story, but like, we're here for you. And then of course, there's a slow burn for her. And what I love about it though, is that she finds these men, you know, this found family of these warriors, and she found kind of the one place and the group of men who will tell her ex-boyfriend to go fuck himself because all the money that he has isn't going to be enough against these men. And I love that type of stuff. I love it so much. So this is a series that I say, though, that they're all pretty similar in a lot of ways, and they're really quick to get through. So it's a really comforting series for me to binge. I'm not saying it's the most freshest, brand new thing you've ever read. So I just try to temper people's expectations, because when I read these books, I loved them. I read them all in a big binge, but they're not, they're not going to blow your mind. They're not the sexiest or the quickest or whatever. They are a comforting series. I would call this series a palate cleansing series, and the audios were amazing at the time. I listened to all of them on AnyPlay, and they're great. I love that. Just when I say I love it, it's not because they're 6-star books over the top. It's just they give me such a comforting feeling that I get from a lot of Westerns that I love them for that. Okay? Does that make sense? Sorry, I don't need to qualify. You will experience that for yourself. I just want to be clear, because I know I am overly expressive and excited about most things that I read. So I just want to set expectations. Like, I gave the first one, I think, like 4.5, 5 stars. And then they kind of are just at 4 stars the whole way. And that's okay, because they were great. They were great. Okay, we do, of course, have to fit in one historical. So I put in Poppies and Silk as a darker romance, and I'll tell you why. It's because in this series, this whole series isn't dark, but this book particularly has a very heavy storyline. And so this is book 2 in a series. You could read this as a standalone. It's called the Texas Bloom series. And in this one, we have Poppy, who she is now a young widow, and she is a seamstress, what we would say. Yeah, she's a widowed seamstress, and she's moving back to Dogwood, and she's actually the daughter of a prostitute. Her mother is gone. She was actually adopted into this family, which was a preacher and his wife and their son, and she married that son. And now the reason she's a widow is that her husband was always kind of sickly. He was a wonderful man, and he loved her, and he was the type of man she needed, a very gentle, sweet man. But her husband has died, and her mother-in-law. So it's just her and the preacher left. And so he has a life he wants to live now. He's ready to move on and get out of the town they're in. Just a lot of heaviness. And so he actually splits the cost of the sale of the home and gives her some money and wishes her well. And I really like that, because there was nothing bad or malice in that. It's just they didn't really have anyone connecting them anymore. And so he didn't just kick her out on her own or any of those things. He gave her some money and sent her on her way, and it's enough to get her business going. So she has some friends in Dogwood, and she goes there. Sorry, I don't mean to go into all the things, but just to set this one up. And the reason why this one is darker than the other ones, though, it is because some people do remember her and her mother. Like, they remember her from when she was young, because she does have friends there. But when she was young, her mother actually tried to, I don't know if this was in Dogwood, though, when that happened to her. But anyway, her mother had tried to sell her as a prostitute when the mother got too old to be welcoming men in anymore. And she tried to give her daughter over to that. And her daughter was like, no, I'd rather starve. I honestly would rather starve. And then she lost her mother soon after that, and she felt really guilty for not being willing to pay her mother's debt. But once she is back in Dogwood, there are people who remember her mother there, and there are people who remember her. And it's a tough way to start fresh. Though being a widow does offer her some protection, there is the theme of sex trafficking that's looked into with this, and particularly the last chunk of this book is directly dealing with, there's no other way to say it, they're slavers. They're slavers of women, trying to sell them into the sex trade, and it's heavy. And our hero in this one is Sol. Is it Solomon or Solomon? I don't know, but Sol is his name. And he's just such a bright light and just releases such a weight from her, from the life she's lived. And I love that about it. So definitely, if you like historical romance and you want some dark cowboy in your life, try Poppies and Silk there. Okay, and the last one that is romantic suspense-ish is the Love Me Today by A.L. Jackson. So a few of the books within the Time River series have the cowboy aspect to them. And this series is romantic suspense, so there's a third act danger in pretty much every one of them. So that's why I feel comfortable sharing this, but it's not quite dark cowboy. And our hero, he's actually a billionaire, and he's lived away from the small town for a while. And he's now come back, and he has a little girl that he's looking after, which we will discover he's not the father of this little girl. He's actually her uncle, but he's, for all intents and purposes, her father now. And we know something really bad happened to his sister to make him the guardian of this little girl. And Paisley Day is going to become the horse riding instructor for his niece. And they get off to a bit of a rough start. So this isn't enemies to lovers. She's very sassy with him, but she's not going to put up with his shit. And, you know, he might be this angry, grumpy billionaire, but she's not going to put up with it. Though there are still drama from his past, from the city that he moved from to here. So that's kind of where the suspense element comes in. And as I said, each one in this series has varying degrees of horsing around happening. Like I would say 1 and 4 have the most cowboy vibes to them, but they do have the romantic suspense going for it. Okay, so those are all the ones that I have read. And now to round this one off, like I said, I do have 4 books that I haven't read but are on my TBR that are dark cowboy romance. And so, as I like to do sometimes, I want you to tell me which ones you've read and if I should read based on that. But the first 2 I will be reading because one of them was a gift from one of you guys and one of them was a gift from the author, and it just came out and I'm very intrigued to read it. So the one that was a gift from an author is Bull Rush. This is going to be shiny, so I'll show it for once. This is the special cover for it. This is, I think, the ebook cover, but yeah, here's the beautiful cover of that. And she actually has the thing on the back, so I'm going to read that while you see this. So this says, it's book 1 in the Purgatory Falls series. So this one says, still married. Those words changed everything. Now my should-be ex-husband, Ramsey Stockton, the former pro football star turned felon and hero who left this town and me behind years ago, is at my door offering me a deal with the devil. If I let him stay and play his wife again for 90 days, he'll give me a quiet divorce and his family ranch, the one my inn is on. When I scoff at the idea, he offers $1 million bonus to help my business float through this rough patch, but only if I'm his. Then he'll walk away and I can walk down the aisle with my fiance. Or I can say no and watch everything I've worked so hard for fall apart. There's only one answer I can afford to give him, but he knows everything about me, every hurt, secret, and every single weakness I have, including him. Well, Ramsey might want me. His brothers want him back in the family business. If there's one universal truth in this town, it's that Stockton men stop at nothing to get what they want. So this sounds like a very interesting juxtaposition between a football star and a cowboy romance. So very much want to read this. Then the one that was sent to me by one of you and has been at the top of my TBR for ages, so it's no surprise there at all, is Chasing the Wild. And this is the first in a series 2, and this is by Elliot Rose. And I will be reading this one very soon because I actually got accepted for an arc of book 2. And I did specifically ask for that arc because I want to make myself read this. This is an ex-boyfriend's dad. I also think it's a snowed-in romance. So me like dark cowboy ex-boyfriend's dad snowed in. If we could use 3 tropes to describe what I love best, there we are. Okay, so this one says, welcome to Crimson Ridge. What happens when you're snowed in on a mountain ranch with the one man you definitely should not be fantasizing about? Do tell me. I've always done what was expected of me, Layla Birch, the good girl, forced to grow up too fast to take care of everything myself. I had a plan, only I didn't count on him, Colton Wilder, the cowboy nearly twice my age. He's my dream man, one who takes care of me, gives me a job, and makes my pulse thud harder every time he comes near. My ex-boyfriend's father. The nights are long and cold on the top of this mountain. As the snow grows thicker and the tension builds between us, we're both itching closer to a line we shouldn't cross. Each day it grows harder to resist the man who looks at me with longing in his eyes. It's tempting to forget about being the good girl for once. No one would find out, or would they? I'm in, okay? All right, the other two I don't have, but I have them down here. So one of them is Off Limits by Emma Creed. And this is a duet, and the duet is complete. So this one says, ranching isn't easy, especially on the border of Yellowstone. The days are long, the competition is ruthless, and there's always someone out there waiting to take what's yours. For my family to survive, things have to go back to the way they were. The Carsons used to run Fork River. We were feared but respected. My father changed that legacy by thinking he could run things legitimately. He lost our power, he lost our control, and he lost our respect. Now I'm taking it back. None of us want my father to remarry, and when his new wife moves out here from LA, she brings her feisty brat of a daughter with her. Maisie couldn't make it any clearer that she doesn't want to be here. She's rude, obnoxious, and far too privileged for life on the ranch, but it doesn't matter how hard I try. I can't get her out of my head. It's selfish of me to want her. I'm too old, too short-tempered, and the darkness inside of me would be destroying. When it comes to her, I've only got one option. Doesn't matter how much it hurts. I need to make the girl off limits. And this is the Corrupt Cowboy series. So, that sounds good. Okay, now the final one on here, this final one here has me a little bit hesitant to read it for one specific reason. And I don't care if I sound annoying. I have been absolutely hounded to read this book, okay? Now, I don't know who the person is, and I'm not picking on them, and I might not only be one person, but I have been absolutely hounded to read this book. And I am a stubborn woman. I'm also a busy woman, and I really am like, I don't want to read it. You're shoving it down my throat. Now, I also know there are plenty of books that people have hounded me to read, and I've loved them, okay? This is the problem with my brain. This is a me problem, not a other people problem. So I'm going to tell you what the book is, but I'm not promising to read it because I'm a defiant person and I don't know. But it's a dark cowboy romance, and I would never keep that from you guys, okay? I won't gatekeep it just because haven't been in the mood to read it. But when I tell you that this book has been put in my form no less than 25 times, because I've counted 25 times, I get a little annoyed. And I'm sorry. I just do. It's just how it goes because, you know, there's 1,000,001 books to read, and when one book just keeps getting spammed to me, it makes me never want to try it. And I don't want to be that way. So if you have a sane, loving reason why you think I'd enjoy this book, please tell me. Because I did get this book at one time, and I started it, and I wasn't loving how it started, but I do want to kind of try to keep going. So I don't know. But I also know that it's a multi-book series, so I'd have to keep going. Anyway, enough of that. This book that I'm hesitant to read is called Savage Abandon by Sky Coppola. Okay? And this is what it says. A billionaire cowboy and a brilliant veterinarian as they battle a mafia hitman trying to destroy their second chance. Okay? All right. Carter Caldwell. I'm having a damned hard time juggling the pressure of a brother on the run and my cattle herd in labor when who shows up, giving me an even harder time. My blazing hot ex-girlfriend, Dr. Destiny Hart, the girl who got away. Destiny Hart. All I want is to save animals and raise my daughter in peace. But life has a wicked sense of humor when Carter returns, arousing emotions I buried deep. But the chemistry is on fire, and I don't stand a chance resisting him. And it says that this is like Yellowstone meets Sons of Anarchy. Okay? But make it cowboy. Okay? So, I've showed you an ugly part of myself by telling you that. So please don't be judgy in the comments. I'm being honest with you that I get stubborn about things. I can't help it. And don't tell me I'm the only one who is it. Sometimes when a book just keeps getting thrown at you, you either read it immediately or you say, fuck it. Okay? And that's how I've been. But I want to know from people who've read it if they think that I'll actually really like it, or is it just someone trying to push it on me because they think that I like dark cowboy and I'll like that, because those don't always equal anything. So anyway, I hope you found some good recommendations. I know I am intrigued to read these two at least for sure, very soon for that. And yeah, let me know some if I've missed them. I know I definitely didn't get to all of them. And remember, I'm going for the dark cowboy. I believe I have made a video that was just cowboy romance before, and I definitely will make one of those again someday. But we specifically want either if it's the romantic suspense type or it's dark, which means like BDSM, Mafia, you know, dubcon, like that kind of dark. Let me know. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, my friends, and we'll see you next time.